Welcome to No Compromises, a peek into the mind of two old web devs who have seen some things. This is Joel.
And this is Aaron.
Recently, I saw a tweet from the Laravel man himself, Taylor Otwell, and it was an observation that many developers try to find the one true way to build a Laravel app, and it's not specific to Laravel, right? Most developers would face this, but his advice was basically there isn't necessarily one true way. So don't get hung up on that. Don't fret about or change direction multiple times trying to find the one true way. Just build something, see what it's like, and decide for yourself what paths are successful and what paths led you to trouble. And so it got me thinking, as we work on a bunch of different projects with a bunch of different teams, I've seen the same thing where it's important to find your footing as to like, well, what is the way this team does something, and trying to work in harmony with that.
I think that's important too, because it's this team, which is a bunch of individuals, not how would you. So sometimes you can make your case and say, I think it makes the most sense to do this a certain way. But if you find yourself saying, and doing it your own way anyway, I mean, that's kind of a bad thing. It's what does a team find most effective together? I mean, that's why you have a team,
Right.
as you're trying to be the most effective, the most efficient together.
Yeah, and one of the challenges is sometimes when there's a difference of opinion, you can get defensive. Like if somebody is questioning, well, why did you do this? It's easy to interpret that as like you did it wrong, but that may not be why they're asking. I know between you and I, we've worked on things together, and I'll ask you, why did you do this way? And what's cool is you usually have a reason, which I respect. But sometimes we do things and we don't really have a reason. And it's just like, well, that's the way I've always done it. Or I noticed that's how it was done in this other part of the same code base, and I just didn't give it a second thought. I kind of followed that. So having those discussions, but remaining non-defensive, is actually a really good way to grow as a developer.
Well, you brought up an interesting point, which is what's happening in other parts of the code base.
Hmm.
Now, I think there is a good idea to refactor and make things better and move forward. But at the same time, projects, they sink or swim based off of consistency. And so even though you might learn a new tool or a new technique or something like that, I still think that you might still have to kind of do stuff the old way, or quote the
Yeah.
bad way, to stay consistent with your application. Now, the argument comes in where like, well, if I keep doing it the old way, there's more I have to refactor. That's true, but it's more of the same pattern versus I learned something this month, then I change it, and then next month I learned something new, and then the next month after that, a new tool came out. Before you know it, you have 4 different ways of doing stuff,
Right.
and then
Right.
of course the new guy comes in, picks the random worst example of doing it
Always.
and copies that, and you're like, "What are you doing?" It's like, "Well,
Yeah.
that was an example in the code." I'm like,
Yeah.
no, obviously don't pick that one with no context.
Yeah, for sure. And so, I guess one of the ways that is handy to try to reduce some of this friction, you can't do it perfectly through tooling, but there are tools that we've used on our projects. We like to introduce to new projects is some sort of style enforcement, because sometimes it's bigger decisions like, well, where do I put this code, or how do we use um, events versus explicit actions or things like that. But
Mhm.
a lot of these decisions are also just like, how should the code look? So a style fixer or something that like right in your editor shows you like, oh yeah, we don't use braces on a separate line for this. We put it on this line. I like that because it's just something I don't have to think about, especially if you move between projects and they're different. Just listen to your tool and be like, okay, we do it that way on this project, and nobody fights about it.
Yeah, and then some of those tools can make some of those changes for you automatically.
Hmm.
But one caveat I'd put with that is just because a tool makes a change automatically doesn't mean that you're not responsible for it.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm a huge fan of making the changes pre-commit, or like while you have the code in your possession,
Yeah.
you could use automated tooling, and then when you're pushing something out to a certain place, all it is then is standards checking,
Right.
meaning that even if they found an issue as you're going to deploy it, it then rejects it. It doesn't try to automatically fix it
Yeah.
because we don't know what those tools are going to do. We're
Right.
reasonably certain, but we don't know 100%, right? No code is perfect. And so when you're using code to adjust code, you need that human interaction, that human element in there, just to just take a quick glance at it and be like, yeah, that was what I wanted.
Yeah. I've dealt with tools like you're describing where it does it as part of a pull request and it makes more commits. And it's just a little noisy too. It's a little frustrating. It's like I'd rather do it locally and get it right than rely on some upstream thing that's going to change it for me to make it standard. Like the standard is good. I get that. And it's good to, like you said, to have a check and like warn you if you didn't follow it. But local tooling for sure, all the way. No arguments for me there. So other than tooling though, I know you're a big fan of documentation. Have you seen documentation help to an extent with kind of this idea of this is how our team does it, or this is the way that we found effective in terms of code structure or architecture, things like that?
Yeah, I've seen that sort of thing evolve over time with projects, and a lot of times that's in some sort of wiki tooling
Hmm.
for the project too. So it's not necessarily part of the project. It's not documentation of the code specifically,
Yeah.
but it's like, hey, if you're going to do this, here's the general process you might follow, and that might be in a wiki, and that might change. You
Sure.
maybe you thought you're only going to use services, and then it turns out that we've been overusing services, and so you don't necessarily change the code. You don't put a comment in the code saying, "I wish I didn't do this." You just change your team's documentation and say, now we should all refer to doing it this way. And also, when new developers come in, they have a place to kind of reference.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not like every single possible decision can be captured in documentation, but the big ones, and especially if it's something that the team has hashed out, like document that decision so that it's not just going to benefit the people involved in the conversation at that time, that it kind of becomes knowledge that the team can share. And especially when that new person joins the team, now they can read that documentation and get a sense of like, okay, this is why we do certain
Mhm.
things.
I do have a question for you,
Hmm.
though. So, part of this, as you kind of alluded to, was personal opinion.
Mm,
When you get to a point where it's not like linting or code standard, and it's just a personal opinion,
yeah.
I think we should structure it this way. Well, I think we should structure it that way. How do you resolve those types of conversations?
I guess a part of it is what I mentioned earlier is to not try to make it personal, either as the person questioning something or as the person defending something. But I think a lot of it has to do with open-mindedness too, to not assume like my way is correct. Like be like, hey, okay, so how would you do it differently? And then listen to those reasons. But honestly, like some of it too is if you can't defend why it's good, like some things are sort of a gut feel and there's no like specific logical reason why this is objectively better. But if you can't even explain a little bit of why you like doing it that way, then maybe to me that's a signal like, ooh, I guess I can't really defend this. I can't explain it. I should be even more open to what my teammate is suggesting and give it a shot or at least consider it.
Well, let me make that question a little bit harder
Okay.
on
All
you,
right.
so you can dance around the answer. I know that you've been programming for quite some time, and you just know a lot. You've ran into a lot. You've made a lot of
Mhm.
mistakes. We all have, right? And so you build up this knowledge. 20 some years of knowledge, and then you go into a project and you're working with a junior programmer,
Okay.
and you run into that where they think their idea is best because of their experience or reading a new article or something, and then
Hmm.
you come to it and say, well, for this reason my idea is best because I've ran into it before. When you really deep down know that you're right, but a team member is saying, no, let's do it a different way, even if you're both quote open-minded, how do you solve something
Hmm.
like that?
Okay. So if I'm hearing your question correctly, it's not that, I don't have a reason why I know it's right. Like, I can explain it. It's just that the other person disagrees. Like, so you're just at a fundamental disagreement both people
Yeah,
think they have a valid state. Okay.
you both
Well,
have reasons, and in this case, just for my example, I'm saying that your reasoning is maybe based off of they're both real reasons, but you
yeah,
just feel very strongly about your reasoning because you've
sure.
been there before.
Well, on a team, generally somebody is going to be in a position to make kind of final decisions. But instead of just relying on some arbiter, some boss to be like, well, this is the way we're going to do it. Especially if I'm that boss, like I don't want to necessarily throw my weight around. But I guess there's also degrees of is this the hill I want to die on? And
Mhm.
if I feel strongly, then maybe that is. Then maybe that's the time to like, pull the card of authority or appeal to whoever the team lead is to make my case and have them rule in my favor. But maybe it's not something that really matters. Like, yeah, that bugs me. I don't think it's right. I'm pretty sure it's going to bite us eventually, but it's not that big a deal. For team dynamics, I might just let that one go.
Yeah, I think it's a area I've struggled in the past too.
Yeah.
Making like you're right. Is this the battle I want to have?
Hmm.
Does it really matter? And so one of the other ways I've kind of attacked that too is saying, in the end, saying, well, because of what I know, and here are the risks involved, I just want everyone to know that this is a likely outcome of this,
Sure.
XYZ bad situation, but I'm willing to do it the other way. So for me, it's almost like not hands washing, but like,
Right.
hey, like not I told you so is almost a strong thing too, but to say this is what I predict will happen, but I understand that as a team to function, we need to go this direction.
Yeah.
So that way, at least we're prepared too of what might come down. Versus if you keep that to yourself or never really elaborate on what that means, just I know this is the right way to do it.
Yeah.
There's no educational part of that.
Yeah, I guess that's a way of kind of gracefully backing out of the conversation whilst not giving up on your principles or not just like throwing your hands up and like I don't care anymore because that's not a good attitude either. But I like that, and I think having that proof so you can come back and be like I told you so is perfect. That's awesome. That will make everybody on the team happy. But well,
just
I get
just
just
I
maybe
told you
one.
so.
Well, one other thought I had while you were saying that is like a lot of times there's kind of two people maybe going head to head with different opinions, but the team is probably more than two people. So, like your point of even just laying it out for the team as a whole, here are the pros and cons. Maybe the team as a whole will kind of come to a consensus. And that's where if you don't agree with the consensus, maybe you just give in, kind of document it, keep it in mind if it does actually come back up in the future, and then gently remind people why, kind of go back to that earlier conversation.
No, never give up, never surrender.
That's our motto. Die on every hill.
I was thinking the other day about what are some of the worst pickup lines or ways that you've tried to get a date. And I know you're married, Joe, so you're gonna have to think way back. But I think I'll share one of the embarrassing ones I had, and maybe you can tell me something as well. So I know a lot, somewhat. I know something about tea. And I was in the tea aisle of the local grocery store. So you know that already that's a bad choice. But
Okay.
I saw a nice young lady there that I want to chat with her. And so some book or something at some point told me if you want to find a girl in a grocery store, ask her for some advice. All right. So I walk up to her and she's looking at the tea and I face her and she looks at me, kind of smiles, and I go to say something. And then something weird happened to me. Something that's never happened to me before in my life and never again since. It's just the worst thing that could possibly happen at that moment. She looks at me and smiles, and I explosively sneeze right in her face. And she goes, "What the?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry." And she goes running away. So now I know there's a woman in this world that has a story that some guy walked up to me in the grocery store and just sneezed blasted right in my face. And my
Oh,
takeaway from that was, man,
okay.
I am just not great at picking up women.
What was it? A perfume or something she was
No,
wearing?
I have no idea. It was just like, bah! I'm like, what? So this, Um, so, do you have any stories that make me feel a little better about my life?
I do I have a story, but boy, it's a totally different direction than that.
Okay.
No, I was just gonna say, as you called out, I am married, but not only am I married, I've been married since I was literally 19.
Oh
And
wow.
bonus points, my wife proposed to me, so that shows how much of a go-getter I am. So I, I could literally say, I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever contemplated like I want to go talk to that person and thought about it. So I am the wrong person to ask. I can give my children no advice on dating for this very reason. So I will send them to you, Aaron.
Do you need someone to come in and argue with your team about everything you're doing wrong?
Well, we won't do that, but we can help. We can share our experience to help your team find tools and processes that will make it better. Contact us for a free consultation on our website, nocompromises.io.